I think motivated people, and especially high performers, athletes, you know, moms, people that are doing a lot really look to do something to fix their problem. It's like they're like, I can add one more thing. I can do it. I'm disciplined. I have my, ducks in a row and I'm really organized and I can do more. And it's really, like you said, it's not about doing more, it's doing the right things. It's a lot of times about doing less. It's about cutting out the things that don't work.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Allsmith, where we forge strength from struggle and craft a life of intention, balance, and grit. Today, I'm joined by a woman who embodies the next evolution of wellness. She's a doctor of physical therapy, a registered dietitian, a movement specialist, and one of the powerful visionaries behind Elevate Health Club in Oahu, a space rooted in community, healing, and human potential. She doesn't just rehab injuries, she rewrites the story around them. Today, I'm excited to introduce Dr. Alex Langford. What's up?
What's up? Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm really excited to unpack your story a little bit. Before we dive into it, when you think about healing and all the beautiful things of the human body and the human experience, what was like the magnetization that brought you towards wanting to heal people and be a co-pilot towards their journey towards peak expression?
Yeah, I grew up as an athlete. I was a competitive tennis player my whole life.
Mm.
I think much like this is a common story for physical therapists, but I took a windy path to get here, but I had an injury myself that totally sidelined me at a kind of a peak in my performance at that time. And I would say, like, looking back on it, I received like really, really subpar care, and it really impacted the whole trajectory of my life. And I pivoted and shifted paths, and was like, it's totally fine. And whenever I got to college, I started getting more into nutrition and just general health and wellness and performance and stuff like that. And really, whenever I think about my why now, it's because I want people to have a better experience than I did. But blending, not just the physical care, but, you know, nutrition, hydration, sleep, recovery, mental health, like all of those things go together. Um, Even
Definitely
my
checking all
background
the
in
boxes,
yoga.
which I like. What's so cool is that as healthcare practitioners, coaches, therapists, um, people that are trying to refine the journey or iron out the wrinkles or be there to help support people in time of need, oftentimes we give the advice that we wish that our younger selves wish we had. And I don't know if you can replace that. Like, you're right, it is a common story for physical therapists, but I think it is for a reason. And there's levels to that game, right? Like, hey, here's the trauma that I felt, here's what I wish I had, here's the knowledge I wish I had, here's the tools and modalities and the mindset I wish I had. But what's so cool is like you experienced it firsthand, and then you took initiative to go educate yourself so that way you had all the tools in your toolbox. And now as you're on a new path, kind of carving out this trail rather with a machete, you're like, whoa, I have a reservoir of tools that I can now share with the people that come see me. And Alex, I think that's just so beautiful. It's so cool.
Thanks. I think it's been like I said, it's been a windy road. And even, I mean, I've gathered so many tools along the way and so many certifications and knowledge and stuff like that. And it's like, I think during the time I was like, I'm not even sure really how I'm going to deliver this. Like, yeah, the vehicle is PT, but like really it's so much more than that. It's nutrition, it's yoga, it's breath work, it's taking care of your body and your health and your mental health and your relationships. And like, what does that look like? And it doesn't really fit in like the normal medical model. It's not what we're taught. So it's
Very
been,
well said, and I'm so happy you said that because that's definitely something I want to kind of pull back the layers of the onion on eventually in our conversation today because there's that famous meme or graphic that you've probably seen where there's two lines. One line is over here and it says, get to the root cause, and there's nobody in line. And then there's a line over here that says manage the symptoms, and that line is out the door. It's
mhm,
thousands of people deep. And it is a psychology. It is a marketing model. It is what we've been sold by the traditional medical system. Hey, you're experiencing this thing. Let's attack that one problem because trust the science. That's what the research says. And that to me is the biggest load of bullshit because the research is manipulated by big pharma for a fucking reason. And you can
mhm,
hear me passionately attack those things because it's like, hey, these are humans. These are human beings that we are concerned with right here. And it's like, okay, maybe there is a time and a place to play with the symptom originally to decrease levels of pain, develop clear thought and ideology to create the compliance. And then over here, we go tinker and explore what the root cause was, whether that's mental, physical, emotional, deconstructing trauma experiences, sleep habits, lifestyle. There's so many different variables. And I think being more curious, asking better questions, like they can actually synergize together. But the root
a
cause over
thousand.
here is not as profitable. So inevitably, it doesn't float to the surface as far as the original narrative. It lives deep in the roots, and you have to fight and fight and fight. And you have to constantly play the game that you and I are doing, which it's challenging, it's exhausting. You constantly are getting pushback, but you know that it comes from a place of love.
Yeah, totally. It's such a process, it's like I have reflected on my clients in the past, and it's like sometimes it's some time in us working together that like we finally reach that point where it's like, oh, this really is the root. I thought the root was this movement pattern that you had from who knows when that this pain cropped up or this injury happened, but really it's some traumatic life event, and we just had to like really connect to get there, and now we can actually like kind of move forward and create this like multimodal plan to attack it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's people have to be really invested. But I mean, I kind of find the longer I do this, the more I magnetize that group of people. There are so many people that I think are more educated in like, listening to podcasts like this and consuming new content, that they're like, wait, like I don't want to live my life just kind of waiting for the next like fix, like band-aid type of fix. And even, a lot of therapy that you get in the traditional system is just like that. It's someone not really knowing what they're doing and chasing pain, and that's just, it's not the way.
No, totally. I was working with a military professional yesterday who's involved in special forces, and he's on this new journey becoming a pilot with helicopters, and entry level based on his past experiences is very different in this new field. And we had this honest conversation around he was learning all these systems and processes in a classroom setting. It's like, oh yeah, I know what to do. I can verbally articulate that. I can answer the multiple choice question. I can have a short form response to that. And then when he got thrown in the fire with the practical application as to what to do, he's like, whoa, I don't know where the circuit breaker is. I don't know where this is. And it kind of goes hand in hand where there's a lot of education. You have to prove yourself and pass the exam and get the formalities. So that way there's a ranking and there's a score to see if you're qualified. But then you get into the real world and it's like, whoa, the actual application of this is significantly different. And managing people is complex. They're nuanced. They're all over the place. And there needs to be a healthy dose of compassion, of listening, But people crave, you're the expert, give me the answer. And that's a big amount of pressure. And you want to practice the art of certainty because you're trying to create buy-in. They don't teach you in school really that much about sales, that much about creating trust with somebody, which at the end of the day, you and I both know this. You can have all these healing modalities over here, but if there's no compliance, there's no science. Like the compliance and the consistency is what leads to the change. And usually in the pursuit of trying to kind of uncover what's going on, you're on this journey together. It's like, hey, you're developing, a TFL pain in the lateral hip, which I feel like is really common. And it's like, okay, maybe it's piriformis syndrome. Maybe it's the way you're sleeping. Maybe it's a really tight hip flexor. Maybe it's the way your foot is pronating or, operating in your long distance runs. And there's so many questions to explore, and you're watching the biomechanics, but most people are just like, hey, why are you looking at my feet? The pain is up here. Or why are you looking at my shoulder? The situation's going on here, like fix the pain. And I'm curious, Alex, how do you kind of shift the ideology around that where people can trust the fact that you're information gathering, you're trying to observe how people move, muscles hold emotions, there's tension that's held in different ways based on habits of sleep, habits of workflow. But they come see you maybe 1 or 2 hours a week, but then there's this whole monstrosity of hours where they're doing the other things that may be positive or negatively impacting that injury.
Yeah, I think that's really where like a super effective assessment comes in, and that's why I spend so much time with my clients in person. I remember when I graduated from PT school and started a full-time outpatient orthopedic job like 2 weeks later, and I saw 15 people a day, and it's like how can you really extract that much valuable information in such little time? And so now what I do is a really, really thorough assessment, and we look at movement patterns, not just what they taught us in school, joint angles and manual muscle testing, kind of the basics, but it's like, okay, how are you actually moving? How are you loading your tissues? What does this look like in real life in functional ways versus, laying on a table and moving your leg up and down? Um, and then, as you start to clear up some movement patterns, then that changes over time. And it's like a constant reassessment. But I think when people come to me, they know that I look at their entire body. Every assessment is head to toe. It's not just we can't silo any one joint or one area of the body. Everything works together. And so
I
I
love
think,
that you said that. Like there's a famous quote. I don't know who said it, but it was like, whenever you find one thing seemingly isolated, it's typically connected to everything else in the universe. And and what's so
yes.
interesting too, I love sharing this story because it gets so labeled and misunderstood. But within my fitness coaching practice, I implement a warm up for people. It's kind of a version of what I call the dirty 30. It's like 30 cows on a couple machines, 30 air squats, 30 some sort of push, 30 push-ups,
Mhm.
some sort of pull. That can be ring row, that can be strict pull up, that can be lat pull down, that can be a horizontal cable row. 30 burpees, doesn't need to be fast, just like kind of getting the body warm, playing with hip flexion, hip extension, getting a little bit ballistic, a little bit of impact. And then some sort of carry, whether that's a farmer carry, suitcase carry, waders carry, overhead plate carry. And that's just an opportunity to kind of check in with tissues. Can we stack? Can we get things in alignment? And what's so interesting is while people are executing their generalized warm up, I'm either finishing a workout, on calls, working with other clients, but out of the corner of my eye, I'm observing them. And Alex, the reason why I bring this up is that if you're in a clinical setting and you're asking people to perform movement and you're watching them, it's not authentic movement. They're changing just slightly because they know they're being watched. And the human eye is so powerful in that way. When people think they're being watched, their behavior upgrades just a little bit. Their movement patterns are a little better. But when they don't know they're being watched, you can see the authentic, maybe movement slop or that drop of the shoulder or the lack of depth in the squat or the lack of hip extension at the top. And that, I think, is the artistry. That's the information gathering that I think allows you to then build a beautiful program of authenticity because you're actually seeing them as opposed to allowing them to be actors for you in your clinical, setting.
For sure. And I think bringing in the self-awareness factor of movement. I mean, that's a huge part of what I do is like bringing in like the self check-in tools to be like, how did that actually feel? How did my tissues feel in that warm up? Was something talking to me? You know, pain is often feared, but really it's more of a communication than
Mm-hmm.
anything. And if you're not listening and if you're not paying attention to what your body is telling you, then, you know, over time, that's a lot of times what leads to chronic pain or recurrent injury. And so, yeah, having that like kind of teaching someone to do that like body check, like okay, what's happening when you're doing these things,
Mm-hmm.
also is so powerful.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. This is coming to mind for me, and that is healing isn't about returning to who you were, right? Like oftentimes people are like, oh, I'm going to get back. I don't know that it's about returning to who you were. I think it is a communication strategy. I think it's about becoming who you were meant to be. How do you communicate that to the patients that you cross paths with?
Yeah, I think there's some people, well, pain is a very interesting experience if you've ever been in pain. I mean, most people come to me when they're in some amount of pain. A lot of times, I mean, now more so, it's people are less reactive and coming to me when they know, sensing that something may be wrong. Um, but pain is such a psychological experience, and it can be so frustrating that I sometimes people aren't in the headspace of like, oh, how am I going to learn and grow from this? They're like, just get me back to paddling, get me back to surfing, get me back to running triathlon or back to CrossFit. And it's like, okay, yes, like we will do that. Fixing pain is like actually the easy part, but it's really the consistency of doing this stuff. It's closing the loop on whatever strength imbalances you have and really training for your body that make the biggest difference in like actually accepting that growth factor over time of like you're going to be better after this than you were before this happened. And a lot of people just don't really believe it. And I think it's part of that pain experience. But once they get some wins under their belt, then they're like, oh, wow, I really am going to be better. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to be faster. I'm going to be more capable. I'm going to be more resilient. I'm going to be more like mentally sound when I approach this again.
Yeah, I love the way you said that because closing the loop is so important. Oftentimes people are compliant with their rehab and with their consistency until the pain goes away. And then they go back and they get the dopamine hit of like, I'm back to doing what I love. F that other stuff. I don't need to do that anymore. It's gone. And then
Mm-hmm.
it comes back. And what's so interesting is like most injuries don't begin like on the table of assessment with you. They begin in how we live. And what I want to touch on with you, and I'm curious about educating our community on this, is that let's just say people train on the high end, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Okay, that's 10 hours. Maybe they do some sort of prehab rehab from you, let's say 4 hours a week. Okay, so it's 14 hours. That sounds like a lot. That's probably on the high end for most people. Well, there's 24 hours in a day. That's not even 1/7 of the positions that you spend time in within a week. When you encompass screen time, internally rotated shoulders while texting or driving or sitting on the couch, sleeping on a side or on your stomach when your lumbar or your low back is in that globally extended position, typically hip flexion on one side, arm underneath and head kind of tilted. I mean, this on camera looks weird, but it's like if my knees up and I'm doing this, it's like, guys, this is how most of us are sleeping for
Yeah.
7 to 9 hours a night, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's like the personal accountability is huge, right? One of the best things I've heard in mobility is the best position is the next one. And so in life, like movement is motion, like we're not holding different shapes. I'm very adamant on camera because it's like sitting's tough for me
It's
because I
hard.
have awareness around like hip flexion and rounded shoulders and my hands dancing and a forward head tilt towards the mic or towards, some sort of device. The awareness is huge. So how do you create compliance and awareness around like, hey, we can do these things and they will absolutely help. But you're coming to see me maybe once a day and or once a week or 3 times a week, whatever. It's like, what are you doing the volume of all these other hours over here? And just to keep the numbers simple for people, if they come see you 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, that's 5 hours a week. So what are they doing the other 23 hours of each one of those days?
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Yeah, I struggled with this so much when my business was purely in person because I felt like, oh wow, these people are seeing me once a week and I don't really have any other touch points with them. I mean, they can ask me questions at any time, but like I'm not checking in with them in that off time. Like what else is happening? Like we're missing a big part of the picture here.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I my in-person sessions are accompanied by an online program, and it basically delivers their therapeutic exercise or whatever it is I'm having them work on. But it kind of serves as we do check-ins through that, and it allows me to give them reminders of those other life tools, like, hey, how many steps are we getting a day? Like, how's your sleep? How's your hydration? How's your nutrition? That kind of stuff, because it's so undervalued, I think, in traditional PT. And PTs kind of feel like generally like they're not, maybe it's not their lane, but it totally is our lane. It's such a big part of the healing process, and they're foundational pillars of health. We have to address them, otherwise we're totally missing the mark. And it's like no amount of therapeutic exercise is going to overcome poor sleep habits, overworking and stress, lack of daily movement, even if you're training hard 5 days a week. It's a balance that can't exist. So, yeah, the way I approach it with my clients, and it works really well, is through that, like, more of a virtual check-in process where it's like they have these things front of mind. They know it's part of their plan.
I really love that. I very much do that. I annoy the hell out of my awesome community via text or our group threads or memes, or I pebble them a little bit with, hey, think about this, or hey, this research just came out about creatine, or how are your vitamin D levels? Who's done a blood panel in the last 6 months? Who's signed up for the next DEXA scan? What are all these things? They're just data. And then based on the data, we can create some of the compliance of like, okay, like you want to point the finger at me and say, hey, your program doesn't work or this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, actually, when we look at your attendance of the last 6 to 12 months, like you've only been attending twice a week. That's 2 out of 7. Like, what's the percentage on that? How do we create, that to be 3 out of 7? How do we move the needle in the right direction by sheer volume and consistency? And that's something that I think is really important, because there's this umbrella ideology that maybe sits over healthcare practitioners of like, fix me. You went to school for this. You have the tools. Give me the magic ingredient. And I think that's part of the reason why it's such a great sale of Western medicine, because it's like, hey, I'm going to eat like an asshole for 15 years and I'm not going to move, but Ozempic's going to help me curb my appetite and lose weight. They don't care about the side effects. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem because it mitigates who you're becoming as a human being and takes your habits and makes them less important until the main reason why people come see you, side effects start to present themselves, symptoms start to present themselves, pain starts to present itself. And then they want to come see you. Then they want to get back in the doctor's office. Then there's going to be finger pointing and blame. And I'm curious, like, how do we create a different narrative here? How do we help people understand that, like, the beauty is in the habit integration? It's eating real food, getting natural sunlight, getting more grounded, not covering ourselves in the toxicity of sunscreen, putting on these shoes that are seemingly casts for our feet. And these narratives have just been presented like the sun's going to give you cancer, touching the ground, you're going to be exposed to all these other toxins and these things and that things. But we're becoming these like mummies in some ways, and we're not actually like spreading our wings and opening ourselves up to the beauty of the human experience. And I'm on path, and it sounds like you are too, but I want to diffuse this into the broad and inclusive community because it's sad to me to see people existing but not living.
Yeah, I think it's the system. I always talk about like the medical system because I choose to not feel like I don't really participate in that. I don't participate in health insurance and that sort of thing, because it doesn't align with with my values in this path that you're talking about. And I think it, mainstream is very much, strips away the curiosity of the process and like participating in the process of like actually being present with how do these things make me feel? Like, how does my body actually feel? We're very generally, a lot of people are very disconnected from their bodies in how their tissues feel, how their movement feels, how their sleep is, how foods react in their body and that sort of thing. And it's like the lack of your curiosity is kind of the problem. I think when people start to really think about it and start to experiment a little bit, start to participate in the process, that's when they can actually get deeper with themselves. So it's almost like I said before, like a vehicle, the process of like taking care of your body is like, once those things are in line, then you can actually ask yourself the big questions, what matters to me? Who do I care about? What kind of impact do I want to have on the world?
Mm-hmm. You're so right. Like that big question, like, what do I want? What do I want my legacy to be? Am I on a path that lights my heart on fire? Or am I just stuck in the nuance of paying the bills and just trying to make it to the pillow at night, trying to make it to the weekend? And inevitably we create this narrative, and that curiosity gets stripped. The childlike mindset goes away, and we go, oh, this is adulting. This is the way it's supposed to be. I really push back against that, and I'm appreciative of the way you articulated that, because I really do think I'm not blaming doctors here. I really admire them, and I think that there's so many good doctors. There's also plenty of bad ones, and that can be applied to any field in the world: physical therapists, personal trainers, podcasters, anything and everything under the sun. There's good, bad, mediocre, and everything in between. But when you actually care, you keep pushing the envelope of like, why? Right? That famous question, why? The 5 whys. Like, I want to understand why this is happening. I want to understand, if you want the truth, you typically follow the money, right? And you talked about seeing 15 patients in a day. You don't have 15 hours necessarily to work. So like now the time domain spent with each person gets diminished. I think most doctors see 20 plus patients in a day. And that doesn't even include the notes on the back end, because they're constantly being looked at by a microscope for medical malpractice and difficulties associated with legalities. And so inevitably, you've got this narrative pushed by big pharma. You've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical student loans. You've got this education that they've received that is kind of manipulated by those two parties a little bit. And I just mentioned the comment about money. It's like, if you want to predict behavior, you have to look at incentive. Most human beings, I think, are craving peace and fulfillment. Hey, if I just go to school and do the hard thing for these 8 to 12 years, the rest of my life's going to be a little bit easier. It's this narrative that's painted for people pursuing medicine. And so then what happens is they become doctors. Hey, this is the science. This is what I learned. This is the research. When that happens, I prescribe this medication. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't spend more than 7 minutes with you because I've got another patient over here. But I looked at, how you answered your questionnaire and your 1 through 5s on your different symptoms and the happy face, smiley face based on the medical assessment that we did. And you're going to be fine. Just take this thing for your anxiety and you'll be good. Never. How much are you focusing on your breath? We breathe between 20,000 and 22,000 times a day. Are you focused on nasal breathing? What are your deep, meaningful connections like? How much are you sleeping? How many steps are you getting in a day? What does your exercise look like? What does your nutrition look like? Those are things that take a lot longer than 7 to 15 minutes with a patient. That's going to take 30 to 60 minutes, if not more. And so then there's the pressure on your side, the practitioner side, to like, hey, if you really care, now you're getting yelled at by your superiors because you can't spend that quality time with the patient. But then you do spend that quality time and then you're seeing less patients in a day, which is not as profitable. How do we undo this? This is something that
It's a major problem.
it's huge. And like people aren't getting the love and the care. And I feel like doctors treat the body, but healers are listening to it. But listening to it takes time and mitigates profit.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's even, I mean, that same scenario is even true in, insurance-based PT. And it's why people they don't close the loop. They don't get the outcome they're looking for. They don't fully resolve the issue that they came with, because it's all about following a process that is not personalized. And I think there's definitely a better way. I do think, practitioners like me, and there's, a bunch of us out there in all these different fields that have chosen to not participate in that. And I think it draws specific people. Like I get people that come to me all the time asking to work with me that say, oh, it was a green flag for me that you don't accept insurance. Mm-hmm. So I think it's people kind of know what they're going to get.
You never hear, right? Like, oh, you don't accept insurance. Like you probably lose a lot of patients too, because thinking about actually investing in your health and using a cash value scares people, and it doesn't fit what they were grown up to know. And there's a penalty, tax wise, for not having your traditional health insurance. Let's go. If I have to pay for this, I might as well use it. And it becomes all about money and not about true care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of wild. I get so many people that have been through multiple rounds of physical therapy in the insurance-based setting, and then they finally come to me and they're so weary that, they don't even know if physical therapy works. They're just kind of like grasping for straws, and they just want someone to help them. And it's really not, the physical therapy is not the problem. It's the system that's the problem. It's the ecosystem that they've been treated in. It's the modality that they've been treated in. It's the process that hasn't been right for them, and it hasn't been personalized enough, and they haven't gotten to the deeper issues. So, that's usually what I end up talking to my clients about. And when they choose to invest in this, in themselves and their health and their bodies and their lives, they, more often than not, they're way more successful than otherwise, because I think they've, gotten to a deeper level of understanding with all of it.
That's so beautiful, because true coaching and true healing, in my opinion, is a mirror. And that's not always the best for sales, right? To be like, hey, you have this problem because of you. And that doesn't feel good. And that's like, stripping away the nuance of beautiful speech architecture. It's just kind of blanket statement, kind of pointing the finger, which maybe it doesn't need to be like that. But holding a mirror up is like, hey, how do you sleep? How do you eat? How do you think? Have you experienced loss or trauma or a huge breakup? Or, are you self-sabotaging with X, Y, and Z habit? Let's get to the root of that. before we get into any movement modalities, like I have so many people, because I'm a huge fan of like sauna, cold plunge, red light therapy. Now we're all chatting about supplements and methylene blue and carbon 60 and vitamin D and creatine. Those are all great supplements to the basics of like, hey, let's get 10,000 steps in a day of just generalized zone 2 movement at conversational pace. Let's try our best to sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. Let's get natural sunlight. Let's try to eat real food. Stay away from things and ingredients that you can't pronounce or things that are artificial that potentially cause inflammation within the large intestine. Okay, if we're doing those things, let's go a little deeper. How's our relationship with the 5 F's? Faith, family, fitness, finances, fun. Are we kind of checking the boxes? Where would we land on a score of 0 to 10? Are we sitting at 3s and 4s? How do we make those 7s? How do we make those 8s to make the rest of our life the best of our life? Okay, cool. Now let's look at this other thing over here. And they do synergize. Like that's you now healing and coaching the human, creating a safe space to listen, seek to understand, and it's not just treating a symptom. Why is that not talked about and seemingly viewed as like woo-woo bullshit?
I don't really get it because some of the best, outcomes I get are in sessions when people are like, yeah, I've done all the PT, and they come see me for, their last session or whatever it is, and they're like, well, yeah, like I'm fine now, but like I have this like, deeper issue, and I think I'm having a gut health thing going on. But like I don't need new exercises. I don't need to change my training plan. I don't need you to like run me through the gamut of like movement stuff. All of that is good, but like, there are bigger issues. There are always, like I said, it's like the ecosystem that we live and thrive in, and it it has everything has to be addressed.
Mhm.
It's much bigger than just one siloed aspect of that.
Yeah, it's so well said. Another thing I want to kind of address with you is we've got the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight response, and then we've got the parasympathetic, which is kind of that rest and digest. We've got hustle culture going on today. We've got, every thought leader and influencer known to mind saying, get up earlier, get that quiet time, do your huge morning routine. So that way, you can kick ass. If you want it bad enough, you'll find a way, you'll make a way. So now there's this hustle culture. I don't want our conversation today about like traditional lifestyle choices to bleed into the realm of like more is better, because I don't necessarily believe that. I think better is better. And you find a rhythm. In the beginning, it feels like drinking from a fire hose. And then over the course of time, these things kind of microdose into your day to day and fit seamlessly. But what's so interesting to me is like nervous system regulation. When people come in to see me, I can tell right away, like, are they frantic, a little bit anxious? Was traffic bad? I can look at the rise and fall of their chest. Are they a mouth breather versus a nose breather? How was their text communication in my check-ins in the morning? Was it cool, calm, and collected and excited? Or was it word vomit of all the problems that are going on and anxiety based on workflow, family, all the things that are to come? Those things matter. Those things take into consideration when you see them, trying to either steer them towards action if they're depressive, or trying to steer them towards being rather than doing if they're anxious. And I think people think sometimes like, I need to do more. I need to be a human doing rather than a human being. But sometimes just giving somebody the opportunity to like throw some e-stem, maybe some cool air, and allow them, just let them know, hey, drop your shoulders away from your ears. Let your spine kind of melt into the floor or into that pad. And I just want you to nasal breathe for 5 to 7 minutes. And then I'll come revisit you. And by that point, like, they've down regulated a little bit. But people don't think about this nervous system regulation and how that plays a role in all of this.
No, no, especially with pain. I mean, I treat that all the time, and it's like, I think motivated people, and especially high performers, athletes, you know, moms, people that are doing a lot really look to do something to fix their problem. It's like they're like, I can add one more thing. I can do it. I'm disciplined. I have my, ducks in a row, and I'm really organized, and I can do more. And it's really, like you said, it's not about doing more, it's doing the right things. It's a lot of times about doing less. It's about cutting out the things that don't work. It's about tapping into the nervous system to down regulate more often. And I think we've all been kind of conditioned over time to have this higher capacity to handle things, but our physiology doesn't. It's like mentally in our conscious life, we're like, oh yeah, I can, work constantly from 8 to 5 and be on screens the whole time, and also think about my family, my to-do list, and my practice or my training that I have after work, and get in my morning routine and make sure I have like my mental health in check and all this stuff, thinking about a million things. But like, our physiology doesn't like that, you know? And whenever something comes up, whether it be a musculoskeletal pain or otherwise, there's a nervous system component to all of that. And again, if that's not addressed, and the lifestyle stuff of like, okay, like you're going constantly, and now we've got a hormone imbalance, and now we've got, all of you're not sleeping well, and now you have this pain that won't clear up even with, doing the right things. It's bigger than that. It has to be, everything is from the nervous system. It has to be addressed.
Yeah. What's coming to mind for me there is that wellness has become a billion-dollar industry, selling things that we used to get for free. And what I mean by that is, based on nervous system regulation, I might, pull from Patrick McEwen's The Oxygen Advantage and say, hey, I want you to nasal breathe as often as possible in your day-to-day life. I only want you to drink water, and I want you to get 10,000 steps in a day. And people will be like, why am I paying you for that? Like, that's so stupid. And I'd be like, are you currently doing it? Well, no. Okay, well, let's do it for a week, and then we can have a follow-up conversation. The first day they're, spiteful because they paid some sort of money in their skin in the game. They do it. The second day they're curmudgeon-y and, bitching in their head, but they do it. Third day, F that Bryce guy. Like, I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I need to go make money, or I have this call or this other thing. Then the next day it's like, I'll sort of do it. I'll do some of it. And then the last day it's like, we're too close to the weekend. Like, he'll understand. So then that communication comes the next day. Hey, how compliant were you with the big pillars of wellness and fitness, with getting those steps, with nasal breathing, and with consuming hydration? Well, I did it Monday and Tuesday. Well, that means you didn't do it, right? There's two ways to do things, right and again. Okay, this next week, your assignment is the same fucking thing. And it's like, then from a sales standpoint, people want to point the finger, oh, that guy or that health person doesn't know what they're talking about. It's like, no. You're looking for the supplement, the cold plunges, the things that are sexy, the ring muscle up, the things that look so cool on the social media. But I am a huge believer that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Any healthcare practitioner understands that if you squat, you hinge, you push, you pull, you carry, and you integrate some sort of monostructural component, you can mix and match all those modalities any way you want. It's a pretty diverse, well put together program. The people that want all the sexiness of all these other things, they're missing the boat. Like, they're definitely trying to sell. And so what I'm curious about is, like, what are your thoughts on the commercialization of wellness, and what should people be wary of when they're choosing practitioners and gyms and different recovery tools?
Yeah, That's a good question. It's I'm I'm definitely in the camp that like most people aren't doing the basics. Like and I just because I see it all the time, and it's like a mix of our society and what people do for a living, and the fact that most people, a lot of people, especially in Hawaii, are remote workers and they're on their computer these odd hours, every day. And it's like, okay, in terms of like fitness and wellness, like what will you do consistently? What do you enjoy? What will like pull you out of that, you know, life that you're in on your device or on your screen or whatever? What will actually get you connecting with people, get your body moving, get you around like-minded people in a community setting where it's like you're sort of inspired and lifted up by maybe people that are doing the same things or working on the same things, or maybe have those pillars in check already. So I think that's super important. I do agree with you on the the sexy things like the sauna, cold plunge, red light. I love all of that stuff. A lot of it's research backed, and there's so much anecdotal evidence as well to support it. But it doesn't make any sense if you don't have the big, low hanging fruit in check already. But in terms of practitioners and providers, and I tell my clients, you should be wary of someone who does something passive to you that they claim will fix you. If they crack your back and say this is going to fix your pain or your problem, you should be wary of that. You should ask questions. You should try to understand the bigger picture. If they say, take this pill or take this supplement, this is going to fix everything, or do this extreme diet, this will fix all your problems. Like, I just think you should ask more questions and bring in curiosity, and look at the big picture. It's oftentimes one siloed problem in your body is a sign of something bigger. It's a sign of something, multimodal usually.
Mm-hmm. There's a famous book that I've referenced a few times on our podcast called The Body Keeps the Score. But I add to that. So the body keeps the score, ... but so does the soul. What happens when people are constantly chasing body composition or aesthetics and they ignore their emotional and energetic imbalances? And do you see that in some of the patients that you work with? It's like, hey, man, they look good over here. They seemingly have it all figured out. But then behind closed doors, like emotionally, like they're a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think burnout is is kind of comes to mind first and foremost, where it's like chasing perfection. It often comes or stems from perfectionist and people pleasing type tendencies, where it's like, why are you trying to prove this? What is the deeper reason? The five whys. Like, why are you doing this? It's got to be something more, because you're already there physically, and kind of creating this downstream effect of like, dis-ease in some way, whether it's pain related or gut related or mental health related, or, a mixture of all of those things. But like, why do you feel like you have to be so perfect in this society? And I think especially in wellness, there's a huge comparison game. It's like the wellness industry, being an entrepreneur in the wellness industry, it's like kind of people look at us and think that we have it all together. And I'll be the first one to say, like, I not rely, but I constantly have a coach of some sort. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really value that. I value, elevating myself so I can help other people. And if no one is holding up the mirror in my face too, then it's like, how can I do that for others? But yeah, the picture of perfection is kind of what it's all about in the wellness industry, and it breeds this comparison game that can be very, very difficult to
Well, I
deal
also
with. But
think,
it's like maintaining authenticity is like the key there, I think.
yeah, I think you're spot on. I also think the world rewards what they see, right? Like, oh, that was such a cool post. I saw you crush that workout or lift all that weight, or man, you're looking good. Like, I saw that picture of you, not knowing that like behind the scenes, there's sleep issues, there's hormone issues, there's tension, there's management of chronic inflammation. And then CrossFit popularized their sickness, wellness, fitness kind of arch or continuum rather. And I was over here. I was really freaking fit. I was clean and jerking and snatching and doing all the gymnastics. My cardiovascular capacity was super high. But then I'd go to like walk my dog and I'd be limping from squatting 400 plus pounds every 3 days. We'd go play volleyball and like my shoulder hurt from hitting the volleyball. I'd go to like ride waves and I couldn't like find fluidity in the water just because of the joint inflammation and just the tissue fatigue and the constant compression of the spine. But the world loved and validated. You get more social media followers. People are checking in like, dude, how's the CrossFit Games going? Or how's basketball going? You get this like external love. But then you look at a blood panel and like you're in your 20s and your testosterone's super low. Like you're so fatigued from training that your depth of connection with people is kind of like tip of the iceberg vanilla. Like, hey, how's it going? Good, you? There's no like meaningful conversation. And that doesn't make it right or wrong. Like I think if you're pursuing peak expression, you have to be obsessive in that field. But I know for me, like I took it too far. Self-reliance was everything. Pain is just there to like be a bump in the road. Like I can push through that. And like you push and push and push until something pushes back. And then you realize like, whoa, I need to reassess this. What is the return on investment? What do I actually want my life to look like? And for some people, they overcome that bump in the road and they become the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James, the Rich Froning, and they carve a new path and it bridges out or branches out into something else. So I'm not saying right or wrong, but I am saying like listen to those little whispers, seek to understand by looking and hire a coach, whether that's a fitness coach, a mindset coach, a healer of some sort, that's going to like hear what you're saying, hear your patterns, and kind of like challenge them a little bit, just so you think outside of the box rather than just following the step-by-step scalable process that most people do based on the education system. It's like, Dr. Alex, learn these 10 things. You'll get a great score on the exam, and then you can be a physical therapist. And it's like you've never been in the field before. You like even just like palpating, what's your bedside manner? What's your communication like? Is your anatomy simply in between the ears, or can you like feel different tissues as you're exploring the human body when somebody's in discomfort? So, I mean, that was a little bit of like a tangential rant, but the point that I'm making is like that definition of fitness, increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains. I don't know that I agree. I think it's increased fitness capacity. I think maybe it's increased sport capacity, but life capacity requires a dosage control where maybe you control your volume a little bit and you understand when to push, when to pull, and when to hold. What are your thoughts on some of that? Because so many people like think, hey, if I just work harder, I'm going to get the answer. And sometimes that's not the case.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think you just can't burn the candle at both ends most of the time for very long without something coming up, whether it is like some physical manifestation or some mental manifestation of it. It's, I work with a lot of high performing adults that are also athletes, and there's this, kind of sense of like their capacity to handle a lot of things in their life is very high. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that's true for our physiology. I think there's now, I mean, I truly believe that recovery is not a luxury. Like at Elevate, we call our sauna and cold plunge sessions recovery sessions. And it's like recovery is not a luxury. It's not something that you have to spend money on. It's something that's like necessary for your body to recharge and for you to like actually have vitality. I think like when you ask someone like, how do you want to feel in life? Like a lot of people say like, I want to feel like vital, energetic. Like I want to be present when I'm having a conversation and feel engaged and you know, feel vital. And it's like, if you are killing yourself in your training, completely overdoing it, and yeah, your fitness capacity is amazing, but like you said, your capacity for like life vitality probably isn't there because something has to give. There's only so much that our bodies can really take. And I think, in a lot of ways, the things that fill up your soul, fill up your mental capacity, your capacity to like engage in relationships and connection really comes from pulling back on things to
What are
make
your thoughts
space.
on like the polar opposite of that for people that maybe have like that David Goggins mentality, which, isn't necessarily right or wrong. It's just different, but they might be like, hey, Dr. Alex, you just don't get it. I'm built different. I talk to myself this way and, I'm shooting for the stars. I don't care if pain or relationship sacrifice or all these things, cause discomfort in my day to day. I'm going after the thing. How do you kind of tinker with that? I mean, I'm sure you have it out there too. We cross paths with high performers in all kinds of sports and entrepreneurship, in city life. I mean, San Diego is one of the most expensive places in the world, as is Hawaii. And then you think about like special forces and guys that are trying to be uncommon amongst the uncommon. They can't necessarily always pursue this beautiful, balanced lifestyle that's easy to talk about on a podcast because they are trying to do something incredibly different.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few clients that immediately came to mind, and it was interesting because, of course I'm helping them through pain and injury, and I don't believe that rest is always the answer in that realm either, for sure. But it was kind of a tricky, like mental scenario of like, okay, like how do how do we do this? Like, how do we continue to like help them be the best that they're at in their paddling or stand up or tactical careers, while also sort of helping them through the process realize that that stuff is only going to get better when they address the mental recharge. And I think that's kind of like the secret sauce where it's like, okay, when someone has that light bulb moment of like, oh, when I actually like take some time for myself, even if it's like 10 minutes a day to just breathe and to be present in my body, or to, journal or just be outside without something to do, like that recharge helps them perform even better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's at least for me and working with my clients, that's been kind of a big realization.
I love that answer. I think it's also important to share with people like, hey, this is just a season, right? Like
Yeah.
if somebody's going through buds in pursuit of becoming a Navy SEAL, like buds isn't going to be forever. It's a
Hmm.
season. And here are the tools and the intangibles that can help support that season. And then on the other side, we'll tinker the program a little bit. I mean, I know Kobe and a lot of like Tim Duncan, a lot of high level athletes, Tom Brady. There's only so much physical, right? Like if you have a 4 or 5 hour practice, 60 to 90-minute weight room, you're doing prehab, rehab, things in the athletic training space. Maybe there's massage, maybe there's IV therapy. There is an obsessive compulsive component to wanting to be the best in the world. So it's like, okay, physically I got to back off, but mentally, can I go get in the film room? Can I communicate with my coaches? What are they seeing? What are my teammates seeing? There are ways to get better without always being all gas, no brakes physically. And I think through observation, healthy conversations, there's things that can still help move the needle in the right direction. And so I love that it's not just like this, like all or nothing, one size fits all approach. You kind of see what people want, and then you kind of adjust your program accordingly based on the season of life that they're in. That's really special and very intuitive.
For sure.
The body's always talking, but somehow, Dr. Alex, we've forgotten how to listen. How do we get people to really start listening when they're trained, especially some of these high level athletes, they're trained to dim that voice. Oh, you're telling me to stop? Shut up. I'm going to keep going. Oh, that thing
Mhm.
hurts? Shut up. I got to find a way to make it happen. When you practice the art of that for 10, 15, 20 plus years, it's difficult to relearn that skill. Like as babies, we know it right away. When we want or need something, we cry. As adults and as high performers, we start to lose that. What do you use from an educational strategy to help rebuild that relationship with our bodies again?
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyan Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyan is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinyan's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyan.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a method that I use that really starts physically first. I think there's a huge disconnection between awareness in, day-to-day life and how our bodies actually feel and actually move and actually engage. And that's oftentimes what comes up in like an assessment, right? Where it's like someone can't, they've had multiple episodes of back pain or hip pain and they can't feel their glutes, they can't feel their hamstring, they can't even connect to certain areas of their body. So that motor control aspect of like the physical, let's actually reconnect this, let's get you to feel certain areas. And that's a very grounding, like very present experience. You have to be mentally there, you can't be mentally elsewhere to reform neuromuscular connection. And so I think that is so impactful. And like, it's like, light bulb moments. People are like, wow, like I've never even paid attention to that. I didn't even know that muscle wasn't firing, or that my knee was doing that when I was squatting, or that my back was overextending in an overhead position, or whatever it is. And it's like bringing that grounding awareness back physically is a game changer. And then it's like kind of over time kind of transforms to um, the mental aspect too of like, okay, how do you become more present in like the daily habits and daily choices that you're making in your lifestyle? And there's kind of almost like a reeling in effect with all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's well said. How do you create a better understanding, or maybe a defogging of the cloudy lenses when people are told certain narratives from past health practitioners? So I'll just use an example, one that you just mentioned, like, oh, this muscle's not firing, or hey, here are the biomechanics I'm seeing of yours. Based on that last injury, you probably shouldn't do that exercise anymore. We've seen time and time again, the body is so magnificent, finds a way to heal. People find ways to get into incredible positions, even though it doesn't really make sense. But it does create a psychological narrative of limitation for people of X, Y, and Z expert said this thing to me. So now there's people of two camps. Some people are stuck, very rarely moving forward because they believe the expert. And then some people are like, hey, flip the bird, middle finger, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then that one gets highlighted and the other one never gets talked about. How do we tinker with the stories that are told to people, athletes seeking healing, but going to these experts? And the experts, I think, are trying their best, but they're just very blunt in their communication strategy. And then it potentially either helps or inhibits that patient.
Yeah, I always call those thought viruses. It's like a provider coming from a good place, I think a place of like authority, trying to help this person and give them some sort of understanding or like a diagnosis, and that inadvertently can, like you said, go one of two ways. It can hold people back, or it can make them just not trust any of that and say, whatever, I'm going to do it anyway. But yeah, I think there's totally an aspect of like, when you're communicating with a client or with a patient, you know, I have to be so careful about what I say. And but I have this huge belief in the body and the adaptation that changes all the time, that nothing, I mean, rarely in movement patterns and stuff like that, nothing is forever. There's some sort of input that's missing usually. And it's like, okay, what are we missing here? Let's try this and see what happens. And usually, like I said, I mean, maybe the word for this episode is curiosity, but coming from a place of curiosity with this versus hard and fast diagnosis or kind of like forever type terms. It's like that doesn't lend itself to like our profession in general, where it's like we're all about like building strength, resiliency, capacity, fortitude, healing. Like those are all changing and adapting processes that, like, to label something and to say like, oh, this is the thing that you have and you have it forever and it won't ever change, just it doesn't really make sense on like a broad scope to me.
Yeah. And I challenge those people that have made comments like that I do believe are coming from a good place and they're trying to create a level of certainty. I mean, I saw it with both of my parents where there was a stage 4 cancer diagnosis and it's like, hey, here's how long we think you're going to live. Well, now there's either like I give up on chemo radiation, or I'm going to switch to a fasted ketogenic diet and try to mitigate all sugar to try to see if the tumor is going to naturally heal. And then there's other people that are like, F that, like I'm going to fight. And if you think I'm going to live 4 months, I'm going to live 20, or, whatever the thing is, it creates and presses a different button for different people. But I challenge those healthcare practitioners to lean in the realm of, hey, it depends. The human body is really capable of doing some incredible things. Maybe there's not a lot of research on certain things, but it's like, hey, check out these supplements over here. We've seen, some general case studies over there, or hey, check out these lifestyle adjustments or these wellness protocols that, could assist you in your journey. And, hey, this falls off the record. This is not a doctoral prescription, but, we're seeing some of these things float to the surface and I've heard great feedback on them. And so give them a look and do some of your own research and tinker in the lab and be your own experiment. Or, hey, I said that thing in our last appointment and I actually like fall back on that a little bit. Like that's what I knew up until that point. And, I had a moment of trying to create certainty for you. And I felt like that was really inappropriate. I apologize for saying that. And I actually think that like, if you maintain a positive mindset and you're around loving people and relationships and can curate a beautiful environment, like we might be able to get past this, or we might be able to at least make whatever time you have left. I don't know the exact time domain, but we can make it pretty freaking awesome. That creates a level of optimism that I think creates a little bit more of like a launching trajectory towards an upward goal, as opposed to just like this downward pessimistic, trust the science, or you're, a horrible human being for not believing the experts. And I don't know, that just seems like not positive healing to me, and not the way I view nature. I mean, look at the ocean. It comes in waves. Some are big, some are small, some are, white water. Sometimes, bad things happen in the ocean, but it always responds. It always just kind of keeps the flow, the motions, the lotion. It tries to create beautiful sunsets, beautiful ambiance. You look at shells, you look at rocks, you look at the sand. And with our bodies being so much water, and really salt water, it's like if we're constantly moving and we're staying in this positive mindset, what are your thoughts on how that impacts like cellular structure and genes, as opposed to just this throw in the towel, give up mentality? There's no research on it, so my life sucks, so I'm just going to stop trying mentality.
Yeah, I think there's fear, anxiety, uncertainty, pain. Those are all triggers for people, and whenever people are triggered in that way, the ability to like tap into like the open doors and the optimistic energy and that like healing energy that really is like ever present is just, it's diminished. I think a lot of people have a hard time really kind of like steering themselves back onto that path.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I tell my clients all the time that I'm like eternally optimistic. I'm a very like optimistic person, but I also believe in like being very clear on what you want and taking aligned action there, and like kind of unblocking any of those like limiting beliefs that you have about stuff, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like if you are triggered by that like feeling of uncertainty, okay, what's going on deeper there? Is it like something that you need to work through behind the scenes there that will help you like stay on this path moving forward, and keep taking those little daily actions that like kind of move the needle forward in terms of healing and health and well-being. But absolutely, I mean, I think it's like it kind of all stems from like this positive, like, you know positive communal energy that exists everywhere around us. It's just, are you seeing that or not? Are you blocked from that, from something that you have a limiting belief about, or you have some emotion that you can't really handle or deal with or get past to kind of get back there.
Yeah, the thing holding most of us back is the story that we tell ourselves. And that's usually infiltrated from past experience, listening to all the different forms of nutrition, which isn't just what we eat, it's what we consume, it's what we watch, it's what creates a psychological narrative for us. And piggybacking off of that, I really do think that we've medicalized things that used to be considered human, things like sadness, fatigue, and physical discomfort. And we briefly touched on anxiety and depression, which are probably on some sort of spectrum based on a whole onslaught of variables. And in very rare cases, medication is probably beneficial, but it's always like the first thing. And it's like, hold on, let's adjust lifestyle before we just throw a toxic medication that has side effects. Hey, if you're depressed, what's your screen time look like? What's your relationship with nature? How much sleep are you getting? I mean, Netflix talks about that. You've probably heard this before. Netflix's number one competitor is sleep, because they want people going down the rabbit hole. And I'm sure YouTube could probably say the same thing. They can be great tools for connection and exploration and watching very entertaining things. Huge shout out to the entertainment industry. They do an amazing job. However, all of a sudden, this enhanced screen time and this constant pursuit of comfort and dopamine is mitigating people's relationship with doing hard things, mitigating their relationship to being more human and more animalistic. Then as a byproduct, they're experiencing symptoms. But those symptoms should first, in my opinion, be addressed with lifestyle, movement, exposure therapy. And that's one of my favorite things about sauna and ice and breath work is all it does is remind you to feel again, to feel more human and to connect with other people while doing something that maybe is a little bit different than what you do on the day to day. Those things in and of themselves can probably move the needle a little bit with anxiety, depression, sadness, and this constant evolution of just fatigue and physical discomfort. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's, whenever I look at that from like more of like a visionary big picture perspective, it's like, yeah, this is a huge problem. And like the most common treatment for it is maybe talk therapy and a medication. And it's like, okay, well, what's another vehicle that we could like help people actually implement these things and like give some coaching, give some accountability, give some sort of like, synchronous like program that people can actually develop and change these habits that feel so ingrained in them. They feel like they can't, get out of it. But to me, it doesn't make sense to not add a lifestyle component that incorporates physical movement for sure. I mean, especially with anxiety and depression, those I feel like are so tied to the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
It's so true.
to me, it's missing the mark on like the vehicle for implementation.
Mm-hmm. Do not mistake activity for production. That's a big one because people are like, "Hey, Dr. Alex, I did your protocols," or it's like, "Hey, I did the stretching," or "Hey, I did the foam rolling." But those things can't really fix the situation. Like sweating doesn't just mean you worked out. The temperature could be high. You could be anxious. You could have had too much caffeine. So what do you think are like the most overrated tools or trends in the wellness space right now, aside from the sun and the cold plunge that we mentioned and the red light therapy?
The most overrated tools.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think quick fixes in any sense, any one thing, any, especially fitness, wellness, where it's like this one thing will fix XYZ, or even in the PT world, this one exercise will fix your back pain or fix your neck pain or whatever it is. And it's like, really, I see it. I mean, I've seen it for years. It's about the process. The process is what helps people overcome something, or the process is what helps people get to be more strong and more fit and
Mm-hmm.
more capable. It's not always about the end result. It's almost never about the end result. It's always about the process and like what you learn in that process, how it shapes you as a human, how it shapes your mental outlook, what you can handle, what you choose to, remove from your life. It's like those little things on a day-to-day basis that really add up and kind of snowball into like the change that you're looking for, whether it's, on the rehab continuum, which I think really bleeds into like fitness wellness continuum. It's all on the same line. It's just a different entry point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's not. I think people really, really need to buy into the process more than the one outcome that they're looking for.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to steer our conversation a little bit into the realm of entrepreneurship. And a couple things are coming to mind for me, and that is knowing is not enough. We must do. And I relating this to your field, Instagram therapy and TikTok rehab are not the same as like personalized care and actually going somewhere where you have accountability to do the thing. Relating to my previous question for you around just some of the most overrated tools, I think a lot of these online apps are giving people the tools as to what to do. And some people have great education, great personal accountability and discipline, and they take action, they get the results. But I would say the majority of people like need the accountability. They need to communicate with a person that's going to hold them accountable to that appointment, to showing up on time to that appointment, to actually being bought in and understanding the rhyme and the rhythm. Sometimes accountability is paying a higher price. Sometimes the accountability is the hard conversations where you can't hide behind a screen. And so what I want to explore with you there is, as we gently transition into entrepreneurship, so many people are like, oh yeah, I think I could do that. Or I think I could start a podcast. But it's like, you look at Joe Rogan, 3 episodes a week for over 15 years. Like for us, we've never missed an episode in over 4 years. And that sounds like, oh yeah, that's repeatable. That's 52 episodes in a year. No big deal. But it's like, you get sick, you go out of town, you have a tech issue, you have a guest cancel last minute. Like, you still have to figure it out. And if you go out of town, you have to pre-record some of these things in order to stay consistent in anything, whether that's podcasting, whether that's health, wellness, relationships. It takes work. And people create this story of like, oh, I know. It's like, okay, well, thinking about the thing or your ego being around the thing is not doing the thing. Planning to do the thing or using AI or ChatGPT to tinker out a roadmap to do the thing is not doing the thing. And I know countless people that have started podcasts, huge followings, and then at episode 10, they're like, this is freaking hard. I don't want to write show notes right now. Like, I don't want to chase guests. Like, I don't know what to talk about. Like, this is frustrating. How do you relate that to your field? Because most healthcare practitioners are going into a hospital or clinical setting. They're not having to market. They're not having to pursue clients. They get paid consistently, whether that's a salary from a hospital or a grant or a fund. You're doing it all. And you're also doing it with a relatively controversial level of care, in the sense of like, it does go a little bit against the grain because it takes more time and you probably can't see as many patients as some of those people in other settings.
Yeah, it kind of definitely, as a PT, we're taught to serve people and to kind of give everything and put everything on the line. And it's like your job is just to help people and to do these protocols and to follow the science and that sort of thing. And like shifting into entrepreneurship really like opens the mental doors of like opportunities and wearing all the hats and doing all of the things. And in a sense, there's a big kind of shift in like what we have to be able to handle. But I think there's a huge parallel in like what I provide for my clients and like what I help them achieve and what I need to as well in my life. And it's really through like consistency and repetition. And what I find is like you mentioned, like Instagram and TikTok PTs and some like templated programs and stuff like that. And really, I think what has worked, and I've tried a lot of things in my journey, and what works the best is individualized care in a way that makes sense for people. And it doesn't always make sense for them to come see me once a week or 3 times a week and do the same stuff, and really be in that like high touch one-on-one environment. A lot of it really is taken beyond the clinic walls in more of a rehab coaching environment that's more digital. It's more accessible. It allows us to capture a longer period of time working together and achieve those like kind of longer, bigger outcomes that they're looking for, and allows us to like kind of delve into the stuff that we've been talking about today: lifestyle management, relationships, stress, all of those things. So yeah, it's kind of the traditional environment is very limiting in what you can offer, and there's I think there's like kind of a more creative and impactful way to like meet and serve clients. And it's, for me, it's through this blended approach, in person and online.
I love that. The art of healing is what's coming to mind for me. Dr. Alex, how do you turn that side of you off? There's the human and the woman in you that, craves heading out and touching on tennis, which is the sport you grew up loving and unlocks so many doors and psychological opportunities for you. There's paddleboarding, there's yoga, there's, like you said, talk therapy and spending time with friends and, wanting to have a nice meal or a fireside chat and enjoying all the beauty that Oahu has to offer. How do you fit that stuff in? And, what does your scheduling process kind of look like to ensure that you have that reset and recharge time as well? So that way, when you do get back into your field of play, you're present and you're able to put forth all of the tools that you've acquired within your life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a huge reason why I started Evolve, was to like create more impact, but also to have more freedom. I live in one of the best, most beautiful places in the world for sure. And it's like, I found myself seeing 15 or 20 people a day, working 12 hours a day and doing notes at night and doing notes on the weekends and stuff. And I was like already burned out after a year of working, being a young clinician. And I was like, there has to be a better way here. And it really is, because like I think I can serve my clients in a better way whenever I take care of myself, and I want to live this life that really embodies what I help my clients achieve. So fitness, wellness, human connection, presence in nature, athleticism, physical training, all of that has a place in my life that is non-negotiable. As an entrepreneur, I think we all struggle with burnout to some extent and all experience it in maybe gradual ways. And like, I've definitely experienced that in the past year of having ownership in two businesses and really making some big shifts there. And it's like, those anchors for me are movement, human connection, physical time in nature, and time with friends and family. And it's just it sometimes it's hard to say no to work. I'm sure you can relate, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
We're on this pursuit for this like greater good, in a sense, where it's like it makes those tasks, like saying yes to another call or yes to another client appointment, or working after hours on a certain project, it really makes it feel like it's worth it. But if we're not taking care of ourselves on a day-to-day basis, then it kind of backfires, in a sense.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah.
What I've thought about often, as I'm about 6 months into full entrepreneurship mode, and I used to think, hey, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And now I'm like, no, 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 no. When you love what you do, you work way more. Like those 8 to 12 hour days turn into 12 to 15 hour days, because it's hard to turn off. You get so passionate about trying to solve the problem, or figure out how to unlock the next level to the game. And it's super fun, it's super challenging, but like you said, it's lighting the heart on fire, and it's what I truly believe the two of us were meant to do. And so as we close today's conversation, Dr. Alex, I'm really thinking about how real health isn't just found in like these extremes. It's really built in like these quiet spaces within the messy middle, between the breaths, between the sets, between the noise of the world and the wisdom of the body. And it's really not like, healing's not linear. It's this thing that is this convoluted dance that gets a little bit messy, and it's layered. You got to peel back the layers of the onion. You got to seek to understand, grab more knowledge, hold on to the things that make sense, and kind of toss out the things that don't. And it really asks us to, as you said, to slow down sometimes, to get more curious, to move with intention, and to truly reclaim the responsibility that we've oftentimes outsourced for way too long. It's not just going out, but it's going back in. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I appreciate your knowledge, your willingness to go deep with me today and share some of your story and kind of create some clarity for our community around some of the controversial things within the health and the healing experience.
It's been amazing. Great conversation.
Where can people find you?
on Instagram at Evolve Hawaii PT and evolvehawaiipt.com.
That's awesome. I loved spending time with you. If I'm ever out in Oahu, or if you're ever out over here stateside in San Diego, give us a call, shoot us a message, and we'll have a nice little sauna, ice, human
Yes,
experience of connection with the sharing of our two tribes.
can't wait.
Dr. Alex Langford, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed my conversation today, please rate, review, subscribe, and as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time.